Hello, everyone. Did you miss me? Did you miss Miss Dynamite? I am back with my first live review of Dynamite in God knows how long, like probably over a year. But people have been asking me to bring the live Dynamite reviews back. So I did it. I gave the people what they wanted. It's going to be at this time every Thursday around 11:30 to 12 Eastern. I start work at 1, so I got to be done by then. But I'm very excited to be with you talking about what I thought was a very eventful Dynamite. I have my points. I have my order of how I want to do things. I'm not going to go through the show, move by move or anything like that. But there's a lot to talk about. And if I have time at the end, I'm going to talk a little bit as well about my experience at All Out over last weekend and what that was like. But yes, this is the first time I've done a live Dynamite review in a long, long time. So bear with me if we have any technical difficulties, if anything goes wrong. I'm trying to iron it all out. And I really want this to be an interactive show. So if you have stuff to say to me, I greatly appreciate super chats, of course. And what I'm hoping to do after we do this initial pilot run here is to allow people who are members of this channel to actually get involved and come in and talk to me. But maybe I'll explain more about that at the end. But should we get into this week's Dynamite? I have to say, I enjoyed this show. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't like an all-timer. But as a follow-up to All Out, I think it mostly hit. There are some things I thought were a little strange and I wish they'd done differently. And we're going to get to all that. But I think the main thing we have to talk about first to open up the show is Jon Moxley and everything that went on with him in this episode. He was the main character as expected. So Jon Moxley at All Out committed attempted murder. He suffocated Bryan Danielson, his Blackpool Combat Club teammate. And it was something that a lot of us didn't see coming, like a turn from Moxley that was that violent. And AEW said they would not be showing it on socials. So how were they going to address it on Dynamite? We opened up with a video package, which I thought was really, really good. I thought this was a great way of them conveying like the severity of what went on, where Jon Moxley basically explained his actions. And I thought for him, it was a really tremendous acting performance. Moxley is a very, very good, intense and believable promo. He's a very good wrestling actor in my mind. There aren't many good wrestling actors, but he's certainly one of them. So I thought this was pretty perfect. He kind of explained why he did this to Bryan Danielson, going back to the formation of the Blackpool Combat Club, and William Regal kind of having Danielson as his favorite. Now, I had to wince at the William Regal references because anyone who's watched me for a long time will know that William Regal is one of my most despised people in wrestling. But I'll get to that. But he basically said that like his mentor was William Regal, but Danielson was Regal's favorite. And he basically thinks that Danielson has like gone soft and they were meant to be there to kind of take over and shake things up. And he doesn't have that like dog in him anymore, like that energy that Moxley wants. So Moxley has turned and is going to do things his way now. He's choosing violence. Really enjoyed it. And during the video, you saw Danielson being stretchered out, which was a very cool visual of Moxley like talking and explaining himself alongside like Danielson being taken away after the suffocation. Thought it was really cool. So I've never liked the Blackpool Combat Club. Like in my mind, it was always a pretty bad idea and one that went on really, really long. And it was a bad idea to me just because Danielson and Moxley are two of your most valuable wrestlers in AEW, and putting them in this faction together, I felt limited them both. And then you had William Regal, who I've always disliked William Regal. There's a lot of reasons for that. There's an episode of Grapple where I came on and I gave my top 5 most hated wrestlers, and I think William Regal was like number 2. But like, there's a lot to it. I just don't think he's very good at all. That's just the basic dislike of Regal. I think he's such a carny too. But I remember when he debuted at Revolution, which was to me an all-timer pay-per-view as far as ones I've attended. You had that amazing Jericho Kingston match, the amazing MJF and CM Punk match. And when William Regal turned up, I was in a place where I was very much willing to go along with anything that AEW did. So I thought, I'll give this guy a chance here, like a fresh start, a clean slate. And then he did that promo where he said that he put Jericho's toothbrush up his bum. And I was back to despising this man after that. So anyway, the mention of William Regal just brought back all these bad feelings. But that was a tangent. So we had that promo. And then the next time that we saw Moxley and his little gang of Claudio and Pac and Marina Shafir, I thought this was very good, because the thing about All Out, there's a lot of people that complained about the intense violence that went on at All Out. And to me, I'm very much here for it. Like, if AEW wants to take a darker tone, like a more adult tone, a more kind of scary tone, it's definitely something that I'm here for. But there are some things on AEW that are, in my mind, just totally silly that I want them to turn away from. So we see that a trios match is about to happen, and it's Commander and Private Party. And they do this entrance, and Alex Abrahantes is with them. I guess he's with Commander now. Alex Abrahantes is just absolutely stealing a living. I don't think there's anyone who brings down the people he's with more than Alex Abrahantes. He is so annoying. I wouldn't generally call someone this, but he's such just a geek. He makes everyone look so uncool. I hate his Michael Jackson glove that he wears. So when he came out and did like a fucking forward roll, it made me angry. I was just like, this is this shit that I don't want to see. That shouldn't be on a show in a promotion where Moxley is doing this serious, intense character. So that's why it was so brilliant when Moxley and the gang just destroyed these guys. The only thing that would have made it better is if he had repeated the suffocation angle with Alex Abrahantes. Like, that guy, now that Phoenix and Penta are out the door, this guy is going to be teamed with whatever per luchador that Tony Khan signs, and everyone should just stay away from him. He is awful. He's an absolute cool factor killer, but that's enough on him. And then we had like Pac speak, and I thought that was very interesting that they gave Pac the microphone. Now, I didn't know what was going to happen coming up in the show, that we would hear from Jon Moxley, but Pac doesn't get to promo enough. So it was really, really good to hear him talk and kind of give his reasonings for the group. And he basically said that they were taking over. And he said diplomacy has failed and the company is theirs. So I think my kind of questions about this are later, like, Moxley set out his reasons for what he did to Danielson, which was very much to do with like the Blackpool Combat Club and stuff like that. And then Pac seemed to put it more on the company. But I think Moxley has things against the company too. And I think my only like negative on this is it would have hit a lot better if we weren't also still in the middle of the Elite versus AEW / Tony Khan storyline, because that storyline, when it happened, and when the Young Bucks, attacked Tony Khan, gave him the EVP driver, the Meltzer driver, I was willing to give that angle a chance, even though it seemed a little bit like NWO-ish, a faction taking over a company and all that kind of stuff. But I was willing to give it a chance. And then Tony Khan sold the injury on the NFL draft to get publicity and stuff like that. And then it just became so weak. I think if they'd gone all in, pardon the pun, on it, I would be less negative, but it turned out to be such a weak angle where they didn't want to do an NWO thing, so they were just straddling this line that made it just completely fall flat, and it's still going on, and we still don't know who has what power. And there's another incident that comes up later on in the show that makes this even worse. So Moxley and his cool, scary gang, striking fear in everyone in AEW is awesome, but I wish there wasn't this unnecessary elite shit, an angle that they wouldn't properly follow through, also still happening on the show. But that wasn't all that we had of Jon Moxley and his gang. So he's been hunting for Darby Allin. Darby Allin, we saw at the beginning of the show, skateboard in to the arena. He had skateboarded the whole way from Hoffman Estates. It took him, 3 days, but he made it. And he ends up going out to the ring, just sitting in the ring and saying to Jon Moxley, here I am, come get me. And Jon comes out, and he doesn't have Pac and Claudia with him. He just has Marina Shafir, who is someone that I've always been high on too. Not as high on as Moxley obviously is, but I've always thought there's something you could really get out of Marina Shafir. And just her badass China style presence right now is super cool. I mean, she took out Commander earlier. So he just comes out with Marina, and he's not there to attack Darby or anything like that. He wants Darby to give up the championship shot at Daniel Bryan that he has scheduled for Grand Slam. Now, they do some exposition on these two characters here, where Darby says that Jon Moxley is someone that he looked up to a lot, but now, because so many wrestlers are basically carnies that you can't trust, but this is not the guy that he thought he was, and what Moxley did to Danielson was awful, and he'd never do that to Sting. But Moxley's very just forward, and he just wants this championship shot, and it's played like Danielson isn't going to be fit to have the match at Grand Slam, so therefore that's not happening. So Darby might as well put the shot that he earned on the line in a match with Moxley, which I was on Wade Keller's post show last night, and we really tried to make this make sense fully with everything that went on in the whole Moxley, Darby, and later Nigel story. But I don't think you should have to work that hard to make it seem sensical. So at this point in the show, it just seemed like Bryan Danielson will not be fit for Grand Slam. That wasn't going to happen. Maybe he wanted time off or something like that. So as a replacement for that match, we're getting Darby versus Moxley. Darby does agree to put it on the line. Some people might say, why would he just give up the shot? But I guess Moxley not goaded him, but convinced him in a way where Darby, someone that looked up to Moxley, feels like he has to prove himself and prove that he can beat Moxley and all that. So I guess that makes sense. So I think for now, at this point in the show, I was just okay with that. And we're getting Moxley versus Darby at Arthur Ashe, which sounds like a very cool match. I'm very excited to see what this version of Moxley will be like in the ring, because obviously for the past couple of months, he hasn't been very motivated. He hasn't really been the Jon Moxley that we all loved. He seemed really checked out. I think was his last match the one at Forbidden Door with Naito, because that one was awful, but I think a lot of that falls on Naito. But still, I'm excited to see what this guy is like in the ring. So an unusual decision to do this immediate like pivot away from the Darby Bryan match, but okay. And I thought that Moxley's performance once again was awesome. Marina Shafir was awesome, and I was totally fine with it. So Bryan Danielson not cleared for Grand Slam, so we think. So we have a segment in the show where Christopher Daniels is just talking, and then he is approached by Nigel McGuinness, and Nigel wants to talk to Tony Khan. And he's basically told that you can't just talk to Tony Khan, which, you know, kind of felt like a personal dig at me, but I'll not expand on that any further. But I've definitely not been in a situation recently where I was told that I can't just talk to Tony Khan. But anyway, so Nigel wants to go talk to Tony Khan, and then we later find out in a promo that Nigel has challenged Bryan for a match at Grand Slam, but it's not a title match. And we then too soon get a graphic that says that we're getting Nigel versus Bryan at Grand Slam, with the asterisk if Bryan is cleared to wrestle. So firstly, we have to acknowledge that Nigel versus Bryan is a huge match for a lot of people. I'm not as invested in the career of Nigel McGuinness as a lot of people that I know are, but to them, this is huge. He got an amazing reaction when he came out at Wembley in the Gauntlet. It's a really nice story. And you can't deny that Nigel McGuinness has been pushing for this match with Bryan as soon as he arrived in AEW. Like, he's never let up on Bryan when he's been on commentary. But I do think that the whole Bryan Nigel history should be explained on TV, like a very nice video package, maybe with a song to it, like, I don't know, Don't Look Back in Anger or something, just to really clue the fans in, because yeah, there's a lot of people watching AEW that are aware of the history between Bryan and Nigel, and aware of it in a kayfabe sense and kind of a real life sense too, where I do think there is a bit of jealousy on Nigel's part of the career that Bryan Danielson was able to have and that he had taken away from him. So it's a really big deal. But I wasn't expecting this match to happen at Grand Slam. I was kind of, once Nigel got in the Gauntlet, I was expecting it to happen at some point. And you almost, you know, had to give it to the guy because he's been pushing so hard for it. Like, remember All In, the first All In, when right before the show, he was like posting photos of himself in his underwear to show that, you know, he was ring ready. And he has been training. So I did think that Tony being Tony was eventually going to give this match to Nigel, whether he's able to wrestle it or not. And I'm not sure if Nigel will be able to give the performance that people want out of him. It might end up being a leave the memories alone situation. But him challenging Danielson was just really weird, because we were led to believe that Danielson was not going to be able to compete, and that's why it was fine for Darby to give up the challenge. But it turns out that if Bryan gets cleared, he is able to compete, but not to put his title on the line. But being cleared should just mean being cleared, whether the title is on the line or not. But I think the thing that irked me the most was that he got this match by speaking to Tony Khan. Because Tony Khan agreeing to put Danielson in a match at Grand Slam after he was suffocated, like it's going to be 2 weeks before the event, and is clearly worse for wear, I don't think it's a good look for Tony Khan. I think Tony should be like, look, Brian's not cleared at the minute. Grand Slam is too close. I don't want to risk something happening to my champion if he gets in the ring with you, Nigel, someone that absolutely hates him. So I am absolutely not going to sign off on a match between you and Brian, a match that really you didn't like earn because you were in the gauntlet and you didn't win it. If Nigel had gone to the Young Bucks, the EVPs, which we've seen other heels do to get what they want, I think I would have been more okay with it, because they should hate Danielson because he's a babyface champion. And she'd be like, yeah, Nigel, you can go wrestle the corpse of Bryan Danielson. Like, that's fine. But no, he went to Tony Khan. And I just thought, why? And I do think that this would be better with some more like TV build and like building that story. But then you also have to think, like, if you're Darby Allin, shouldn't you be like, hey, I just put my shot at Brian on the line because I thought he wasn't able to compete at Grand Slam, but he probably is able to compete at Grand Slam. So that was really weird, and I think they could have done a better job with it. And I would love to know like the actual reasons for this. Obviously, it's been well documented that Grand Slam is not selling well, like as well as it should. So I don't know if this is a reason why you would now pivot to Nigel versus Brian, which is not a dream match for a lot of people, but a match that a lot of people are excited to see. But it was very odd. But like just that little wrinkle of that he spoke to Tony and not the Young Bucks, I think it would have made way more sense if he spoke to the Young Bucks, who are heels. So the other person on Daniel Bryan's horizon that made an appearance on this show is Christian. And when I was doing the review with Wade last night, I actually totally forgot about Christian and that this segment happened. But after the awesome video package with Moxley explaining his actions, we got Christian Cage coming out. And Christian was good as always. Like, he's always a good promo. He's always very entertaining. He plays his character extremely well. But I kind of felt that it is good to know that there's like more people, gunning for Danielson, and he always needs to watch his back. But at the same time, I thought that as an opening segment to go after that video package, it was a little bit flat. I'm not sure how much people care about anything to do with Luchasaurus and Christian. And also, I do really, really hate that they're basically doing a Money in the Bank gimmick. Money in the Bank, cashing in anytime, that's a WWE thing. And I think, like, just leave that shit to WWE. It's an example of something that WWE has done that then people think just existed in wrestling forever, so they should do it. And a lot of indie feds do it and whatever to copy WWE. But a promotion like AEW should make up their own stuff. Like, they made up the Casino Gauntlet, and I think that they'd been trying for a long time to have their signature match, to have their Royal Rumble, to have their Money in the Bank. And they tried different things, like different gimmicks to do with playing cards and stuff and all this Vegas shit. But the Casino Gauntlet as a singles, because we'll get to the tag, what is really, really good and something created by AEW. I don't know why they're just ripping off WWE here by doing this cash in at any time thing. And yeah, I don't like that. But Christian, good as always, he has no chance of being the one who beats Bryan Danielson. I could very much see Christian's cash in happening after Bryan's match with Nigel, because Bryan is going to beat Nigel, and hopefully he'll be selling, like, being very worse for wear given what happened with Moxley, and given that I would say Nigel and Bryan are probably going to have a pretty intense match. Wouldn't surprise me if it's, you know, no holds barred or something to protect Nigel more, because he hasn't wrestled in 13 years other than his spot at Wembley. So if Christian cashes in after Bryan and Nigel, I think I'd be fine with that, to just get rid of this thing, because it's too WWE for me. You just shouldn't be copying them. So, interesting title picture situation. Do I think Moxley is going to beat Darby? I can't see Moxley taking a fall with this new character already. However, the next pay-per-view is Wrestle Dream in Tacoma, Washington, with Bryan and Darby both being from Washington. That sounds like a cool match, but I don't know where Moxley would figure in. But I do think that Moxley will be the one that ends it for Bryan. But I feel like that's going to come at World's End and not at Wrestle Dream. I know some people think it's going to happen at Wrestle Dream because it's in Washington, but I see World's End more of like a pay-per-view where you can close a chapter, and closing the chapter on Danielson's career, like at the end of 2024, I think is a pretty good idea. But I'm not really sure how they're going to get to that. And I think that there's lots of matches that Bryan needs to have before we say goodbye to him. So let's move on to the other person who likes to commit attempted murder in AEW, Hangman Page. Now, I was very intrigued to see how they would follow up on what Hangman did at All Out, because we know it has been reported that Swerve is taking some time off, so we knew that he wouldn't be there. So what do we do with Hangman Page? So what we got with Hangman was a backstage spot. So Hangman was, let me get exactly what happened here. Okay. So they show a video package, and I thought they showed that very well, because there was stuff they weren't going to show on TV, you know, at all. So then we have Renee, who is with Hangman Page backstage. I'll talk more about Renee after I say this about Hangman. So she's asking him where his head's at. Hangman says that if Swerve had 1,000 houses, he would burn all 1,000 of them down, just to make him pay for what he did. And he meant it all. So even though it felt like at the end of All Out, he showed a little bit of regret, like subtly, like how did it come to all this? Was it worth it? Now he's going full blast of like, I did the right thing. You see Top Flight and Layla Gray in their ridiculous costumes. He approaches the Dark Order boys. They don't know who he is anymore. And then in walks to the shot Jeff Jarrett. Control Alt Jeff. He is there. And I really liked this, because Jeff has really done tremendously well in the past couple of months. He's had a great little run that started with the Owen tournament, where he first got into it with Hangman. So Jeff, says like he's been in the business a long time, and he's seen guys take a dark path, and it's never the way. And he references the moment at All In Wembley where Hangman put hands on Karen Jarrett, which I thought at the time was a really good moment, because Hangman, if you've followed Hangman's story from day one, I've I've always said that Hangman's not just the main character of AEW, but the romantic lead of AEW. Him being the handsome cowboy, him being the anxious millennial cowboy. There's a lot to him that makes him be the guy that you want to root for from the beginning, when he lost to Jericho, through to his teaming with Kenny Omega, his issues with the Young Bucks, him winning the title. And when him and Swerve first started getting into it, there was always, like, to me, this emotional thing with Hangman, and Swerve, did break into his house. And then obviously we've seen where the story's gone, where Hangman, that has driven him crazy and driven him to do really bad things. And when I saw him in Wembley put hands on Karen Jarrett, which, we know, like, men should not do this, it was the most heartbreaking thing, because everything he had done to Swerve, and I include him, like, burning down his house later, that was completely justified because he's a family man. Like, Hangman loves his wife and he loves his child, and he wants to protect his family, and he feels like he's protecting them from Swerve, what Swerve did. But him doing that to Karen was just totally unjustified. And it's like, okay, now you're not like a righteous bad guy. You're actually just being like a villain. Your mind has been poisoned that you're doing this. So I loved Jeff bringing it back up. And if Swerve, we have to take a break from Hangman and Swerve, right? Because they went so far at the pay-per-view that you need a breather. So if they're going to just run back Hangman and Jarrett, I think that would be very cool. And it could add another beat to the Hangman Page storyline, because AEW will always be, until he retires, the story of Hangman Page to me. So I'm interested to see where this goes. I did expect more from Hangman, but I'm not going to complain about this, because I did like the Jeff Jarrett interaction. What I have to say about Renee, and I guess this comes off how mad I was, and like just how much I thought and this is a very media-centric complaint, and I get this, and believe me, I see the people coming at me and telling me to just, be happy for what I got and all that stuff. But put it this way, whatever your job is, I don't tell you, A, how to do it, or B, what you should expect at work. And the all-out scrum was like so bad. We got 15 minutes of Tony Khan basically trying to make us think that real shit had gone down and that he needed to go, but it turned out he had to take a flight. But at the beginning of it, after the RJ City panel, where we mostly got to see the gum inside Lexi Nair's mouth. After that, we had, like, there was this bit, and I don't even know if it was shown on video, where Renee came in acting like Meryl Streep and saying, like, oh, I'm sorry, I can't host for you, but something has happened regarding her husband committing attempted murder. And then we're on Dynamite, and she's just there talking to Hangman Page, the other attempted murderer on the show, and she seems like totally fine. Her husband's still running around being a crazy person. And I just thought, like, this is why these relationships shouldn't be in canon. We're all grown-ups watching, and we know that Renee and Moxley are married, but that has been previously brought into AEW canon, and it never should have been, because she is a backstage interviewer, and that just shouldn't be part of the story, because you end up looking at Renee Paquette, the television character, knowing her marriage to Moxley in real life, knowing all the shit that Moxley's doing and how he's acting, and being like, oh, well, isn't it great that she's able to just continue on in her job? And I just don't think they should bring this shit into canon. Like, we know that Lexi Nair and Big Bill are a couple, But if you're, someone that reads, that is on the internet, but I hope they don't ever bring that into canon, where when, Big Bill finally turns on Jericho, we have Lexi Nair being really shaken trying to do a backstage interview because she's just seen her boyfriend do that. I would put a massive bet on the fact that they're going to bring Alicia Tute's relationship with MJF into canon. They 100% are. But I think that it was just a hangover from the completely pointless waste of time, waste of money scrum that they put on for us. And I know I'm not the only media member that was very annoyed by that. And I'll not name other names because I don't know what other people have said. But a hangover from that was just when I saw Renee at this show, I was just like, it's annoying. It's annoying. But I love Hangman. So the next person I need to talk about is Jack Perry, who defended his TNT championship against Lio Rush. Lio Rush is great. He was out there with Action Andretti, who is part of the Top Flight, where they're all pilots now. But he wasn't in costume, thank God. I could do a whole video, I might one day, on Action Andretti and the flop of that, but that's a story for another time. Lio Rush, I don't know why he got a TNT title shot, but I think that's okay for the TNT title because it's a TV championship that should be defended on a near enough weekly basis. And if you want to get a good match with someone, Lio Rush is one of your guys, a tremendously talented competitor. I thought this was good. I don't ever base my opinions on what other people think, but from what I hear, what I listen to, I think I'm a lot higher on Jack Perry than other people. I really like Jack Perry. I really like the scapegoat character. And I think that one way you can know that I'm sincere is if you go back on my YouTube, unless I deleted it, and I don't think I did, I made a video when Jack Perry turned heel and he did that promo where he was just like, I'm a bad guy now and I've had sex. I thought that was awful, one of the worst things that they've ever done. And I made a video just ripping it apart for how bad it was and lame and sexist and everything. And it is very weird for you to have a character based on a real life incident you had with CM Punk that led to CM Punk getting fired from the company. That's weird, but wrestling is weird. It's about taking real life incidents a lot of the time and making it part of the show. So Jack got to this scapegoat character in a strange way, but I think he has taken advantage of the situation with Punk better than anyone else in AEW did. I mean, the Young Bucks never did in a money-making way. And I think Jack's done really well. And I really like him. And I liked his little words to the camera after the match. I like the scapegoat bus. I would definitely go for a ride in that. And I just enjoy what he's doing. I think he still has a lot he can improve on, but I'm here for it. And I think he looks good and is smarmy. And I like Jack Perry. I like Jack Perry a lot. I like him doing this scapegoat video. I felt at all out he got, excuse me. I felt that he got a really great amount of heat from the Chicago crowd that didn't translate to television that well. So I'm here for Jack. I want to know what's happening next. I am forever hopeful that my guy Kenny Omega will return soon. And if he returned to beat up Jack Perry and it led to a match, that would be great. However, I think we need to build Jack up more as a heel before that happens, because the reason why I wouldn't have given him the match against Danielson at All Out is just because he had to lose, and I don't want him failing at things. I would rather him destroy a lot of guys in the mid-card division That's the only complaint I had about him getting the Danielson match. But I'm here for Jack Perry. I'm here for the scapegoat way more than I'm here for like what the Young Bucks are doing, because the scapegoat thing feels darker than the silliness of his stablemates. And when I'm talking about silliness, I include Okada in that, in the way Okada's behaving. But yeah, look, I'm a Jack Perry girl, and my mom is very into Jack Perry right now, and maybe that's slightly influencing me as well, because I just spent a week with my mom and Jack Perry did come up multiple times. But I'm here for Jack Perry and everything that he's doing. Okay, we gotta talk about this casino tag gauntlet, and we'll do it from the beginning, where we had Don Callis, Takeshita, and Kyle Fletcher, and Will Ospreay was there, a backstage segment. And so basically Don Callis, Will Ospreay owes Don Callis a favor. So him and Kyle decide to call in this favor. And this is that Kyle Fletcher wants Will Ospreay to team with him to enter the casino gauntlet, because Will has not lost a gauntlet that he's been in. And Kyle says that there's no one he'd rather team with. And Will Ospreay is kind of like, well, I'm no Mark Davis, but sure. And obviously Kyle's partner, Mark Davis, we haven't seen in a long time, like maybe a year. So this happens. Takeshita looks like $1 million in the background. He looks pissed. And, you know, Takeshita, the forgotten victim of the Vortex, obviously, but he's just back from his G1 run. Everyone wants good things for Takeshita. So I liked what he was doing, the camera mugging. I thought that was very awesome. And then just to continue on Takeshita's thread that night, he ends up kind of doing Okada. Okada is basically being joke Okada, laughing about how easy the four-way was at all out of the four-way that Takeshita was in. Callis, I think it's Callis that says that he didn't beat Takeshita. And there's basically a challenge laid out, but Okada wants no part of Takeshita. So on the Takeshita subject, I'm very glad that they are building to Takeshita Okada, and I would love the latter half of the year to see a real spotlight put into Takeshita. I think the main event scene currently with what they're doing with Danielson is too crowded for me to say Takeshita's going to be a main eventer. But 2025 has to be his year, because this is a guy that they are so fucking lucky to have. They are so lucky to have Takeshita. And they have derailed him multiple times. I think the biggest being when Callis and Jericho started their whole 30-year history, talking about that in Dynamite every week for what seemed like 6 months, but I know it wasn't, in order to get us to an Ospreay Jericho match at Wembley. He's just been derailed so many times, and I guess that's why he did the G1, to actually do something and increase the hype around him, and it worked. He was the star of that tournament. So happy to see the Takeshita Okada match being built, and Takeshita needs to just fuck off Don Callis, get rid of him. I don't really know what you do with Don Callis now, because I don't think he's a great manager, and the guys that he's aligned with, people end up liking, but still absolutely hating Don Callis. So anyway, this tag casino gauntlet, which is 21 tag teams, we're told, in total, are entered into that gauntlet. But clearly, before Dynamite, they only had 20 tag teams, because Ospreay and Kyle Fletcher took a spot. I'm not going to go through this gauntlet team by team, But I'll mention some of the teams that were in it. Let me just get a list up here because so the Young Bucks came out to watch this. And I'll just tell you now that this match just pissed me off. Okay, so we had FTR, Fletcher and Ospreay, The Righteous, The Kingdom, The Acclaimed, the MXM Collection, which you can imagine I don't like because, you know, I don't like silly Billy business. Speaking of silly Billies, Top Flight, the Outrunners, who do get massive reactions. And where are the Grizzled Young Vets? Were in that too, right? So this match, I was expecting something. Yes, Grizzled Young Vets were in it. I was expecting something from this match that would reset the tag division, because the tag division has been god awful. It's just been FTR and the Young Bucks. The other teams that are tag teams, they either get sucked into trios or made into idiots. For example, Top Flight and Private Party. And this tag division problem has been going on for a long time, and it's wild that this is a company with a tag team as EVPs because their tag division is so weak. I haven't enjoyed this Young Bucks title run at all. So I really thought here that something was going to happen that just reset the division, like maybe we'd get a debut. I was very much hoping for MVP and Lashley, just because I want MVP in this company. Lashley I can take or leave, to be honest. Or people have been talking about the Motor City Machine Guns for ages. Anyway, I thought something was going to happen. And no, this was won by a tag team that aren't an actual tag team. And I think at any other point, obviously the Young Bucks want to have a match with Ospreay and Fletcher, because they probably think they can do a spectacular match. And yeah, I'm sure it's going to be great, but I don't think this is the time for it when your tag division is so just completely been eviscerated. And then on Collision, we're getting FTR versus the Grizzled Young Vets. So why doesn't the winner of that match just get the shot against the Young Bucks? I don't know, but I find this very disappointing. Not saying it was a bad match, but the Casino Gauntlet, the singles one, people have loved it so much. AEW's signature match. So then, of course, Tony can't just like let it have a breath, let us miss it, let us want the next Casino Gauntlet. He has to immediately try it with tag teams, and for nothing. Honestly, that's how I thought. It wasn't a bad match, but I'm like, why the hell are we doing this? Why can AEW not have a tag division? It's wild. Like, why can't they just do that? So yeah, this was all for Fletcher and Ospreay to win, and I thought that on what was a very eventful Dynamite, it was just a flat ending. That no big thing happened. Whatever there was, it was just these two single guys won, and I imagine Fletcher will turn on Ospreay in the match or something at Grand Slam, and they're trying to hold off Ospreay and Ricochet actually doing the match, but having us still think about it. But yeah, I was not impressed by this at all. I thought that I was missold. I thought that I was going to get something really fun, and I didn't. The rest of the stuff I'm going to go through a lot quicker because I'm running out of time. We have to talk about the Jericho segment because it was so idiotic. So Jericho is feuding with Orange Cassidy over a jacket that Orange Cassidy ruined 4 years ago. They're bringing this up again. I don't know why. I can only speculate that Jericho had nothing else to do, and people like the conglomeration. It makes them happy. Orange Cassidy always makes people happy. He's a forever babyface. So Jericho was like, let me just jump onto him again. And what will the reason be? That jacket from 4 years ago. So Jericho turns up in a Bentley with Big Bill and Brian Keith. He's wearing the jacket from 4 years ago, so it's like a white orange stained jacket. It looks absolutely gross. I hope it doesn't smell. They show the footage of this jacket getting ruined, which I personally would have been like, please don't show that, for reasons of what happens when when liquid hits the head of someone, in their mid-50s. But they did show that footage, and it's one of these stupid Vince McMahon destroy vehicle angles, but done way worse than Vince McMahon has had ever done it. So Jericho stole the backpack on the Rampage Collision block before All Out. And he thought the $7,000, the alleged cost of the jacket, would be in the backpack. It wasn't, but something else was in the backpack. What could it be? Maybe something really exciting or controversial. I don't know. But it turned out to be a framed photo that Orange Cassidy is allegedly carrying around of him and the best friends, Chuck, Trent, and Chris Statlander. So, like Maddie Edwards style, physical media. Orange Cassidy's been carrying around this physically like framed photo of his former friends, because I don't know, he doesn't have a phone where he can save all the photos. The absolutely lamest thing that could have been in this backpack. Like, I don't know, like someone should have planted heroin in it or something just so it was exciting. But it was a freaking framed photo of his friends. So Jericho basically says, like, there's no friends in this business, and Big Bill gives him a look. Obviously, Big Bill's going to turn at some point. And then Orange Cassidy is like, hey, Chris, I'll give you your $7,000. And we have Mark Briscoe and I forget who the other person was. I'm sorry. They're driving not a forklift, but one of those big dump trucks, and it's full of coins, and they pour it in the Bentley, and fuck all happens because it's not enough coins to be $7,000. Oh, it was Kyle. Thank you. It's just not enough money to make any kind of impact. It just, like, I think they just inconvenienced Jericho by putting all these coins in his car, which I guess he's going to make Big Bill and Brian Keith like pick out of his car or something. I think they were going for something that looked a whole lot better, but it looked awful, especially when we have seen in the past like cement be poured in a car and like the window smash and stuff. This was so badly executed. Just absolute bullshit. My only thing that made me happy was that they didn't go for the fact that Orange Cassidy wears friendship bracelets, because if you watch my interview with Orange Cassidy, he shows me all his friendship bracelets, and sometimes it seems like Jericho's just trying to like have a go at Punk. So at least he stayed away from the friendship bracelets. But like, this was just awful stuff. And when I talk about how I loved All Out and I love what Moxley and Hangman and Swerve and all these people are doing with like the darkness and the intensity, and I then hate when you have to then see stuff that is stupid on the same show, even though I know it's a variety show. Like, the Jericho stuff does not fit with any of the serious stuff that we're seeing on Dynamite. And I've heard, so some people, that when Hangman burnt down the house, I loved that. Totally on board with that angle. And I thought that Swerve did a good performance in the ring when he was watching his house being burnt down. But I know that a lot of people didn't think it was a good performance. Like, they thought it was hokey. And my response to that is basically, look at how Mercedes acted when she was told that Camille couldn't be at ringside for her match. Mercedes, I'm sorry, is a terrible actress. And I know she's actually had Hollywood acting roles, but she's very bad in a wrestling sense of being an actress. She, I thought, acted like 100 times more over the top about this Camille thing than Swerve did about his house being burned down. I thought Swerve gave quite a good performance, because what can you actually do when you're watching that? Like, what can you actually do? The way that Jericho acted for this Bentley having coins put in it, not being destroyed, was so over the top, so stupid, so one of those things that if someone like walks into the room or changes the channel and sees this, are just going to be like, what is this shit? What is this like badly acted amateur dramatics shit that we're watching? His reaction was terrible to it. And why would we even care that a multimillionaire had the car that he just got destroyed, even though it wasn't even destroyed? It was a terrible segment. And I'll say this, if I had to put money on it, I think that, so Jericho's wrestling tomorrow, CMLL, he's wrestling Mystico in the main event. at Arena Mexico. And if I had to put money on it, would say that I think Jericho's going to have a really good match in Mexico. I think that he's really going to show out. I think it will be one of his best matches in a long time. And I don't think he's going to turn up in Mexico doing this learning tree shit. I think he's going to be something closer to Painmaker, maybe not with the makeup, because when he put that promo out that led to that match, I was just like, this is like watching a different person than we see on AEW TV. Like this is a different guy, and this guy is what he should be doing. So if he turns up in Mexico and he's like dressed in all black, wearing a leather jacket, and not smiling and waving and doing this shitty gimmick, and has a good match with Mystico, like, why isn't that what he's doing in American TV? What he's doing in American TV, in my opinion, is just bad legacy destroying stuff. And there's definitely a character that you could create for him, or that Tony Khan should be telling him to do, and it's not this one. But I will watch that match in Mexico, and I bet it's going to be good. I bet you it's going to be better than the learning tree stuff that we've been seeing for ages. I don't have much to say on Ricochet, Sammy Guevara. This was better than Ricochet's match with Kyle Fletcher, but I'm not like excited about Ricochet being part of AEW. He's very good, but I do think that he's been lapped by Ospreay, and I think that he's brought in to have this match with Ospreay that they're holding off, but then it's like, now what? Because we've had a few instances in AEW of them hiring these mid-card, lower mid-card guys from WWE that a lot of people put in the Vince was wrong about category. And none of them have worked out other than Swerve. Like Swerve's the fucking man. But, you know, your Andrades and Miros and even, dare I say it, Adam Cole haven't worked out. And I just have no interest in these ex-WWE guys coming in. If you have a big star like Bryan Danielson that becomes a free agent, take him. Take Mercedes Moné. But when you get to the Ricochet level, I know he has a fan base. I know people want it. But I personally look at the AEW roster, which is bloated. And there are so many guys on that roster that are like mid-card level. They're never going to be main eventers. And I would give them these spots. And he's in there with Sammy Guevara, who Sammy's had a rough ride in AEW. Honestly, when he started, I was very high on him. And this stuff with Jericho went on for so long. And it made me dislike him, but I always still felt a bit sorry for him that he just couldn't get away with Jericho. And then I think there was some personal stuff, like maybe some immaturity issues that Sammy had. But for the past while, I've not liked Sammy Guevara and not wanted to see him again. But I did actually encounter him in person in the past couple of weeks, and he really turned me on him. A very nice guy that then I started to be like, okay, man, I'll give you a second chance. He's over in Ring of Honor with Dustin Rhodes, which is nice, but like, why is he with another guy in his 50s? I don't know. But there's a lot that Sammy has to work on, and I think he got a lot of bad advice, because I think that he was Jericho's personal project for too long, which made Jericho lose sight of the stuff that Sammy was doing that was just wrong. Like wrestling as a heel, but waiting for face reactions after every flippy move he does. He's so guilty of that. In this match, I thought he was better than Ricochet, and it just made me think, other than doing this Ospreay match, like, why do we need Ricochet? We have Sammy Guevara. Let's make our own flippy guy. We've got Sammy Guevara, and we have Will Ospreay. So, and Ospreay had such a great match with Pac. Like, I don't see Ricochet ever being better than Pac was against Ospreay. So, a better night for Ricochet, but I'm not on the Ricochet train. Sorry. And he needs to get off Twitter. He makes himself so unlikable on Twitter. I've interviewed him a couple of times. Seems like a nice guy. Just get off Twitter. You don't need to reply to randos. You really don't need to do that. Okay, 3 quick notes on the women. I don't think Mariah May has been in a good position since the Toni Storm thing ended. I think that they built a great character / storyline for her with Toni Storm. Now that she's out on her own, it is not clicking. All Out, the pre-show, her and Sky Blue had a embarrassing interaction that included the word skank. And I believe / hope that either of them pitched saying skank, right? I'm not going to sit here and say like some man in the back told them to say skank. But that's not something we should be doing anymore. And I don't think that the women thinking of it themselves makes it possible, because this is just not something that should be happening. It also got no reaction, but this idea of like, this is what women stoop to when they're against each other. Like when women get into an argument, we should not be stooping to this whole like who has the most sex. Like there was blowjob references in here. It's not good. Okay, I don't know how, like, Mean Girls came out over 20 years ago. And not to be too much of a millennial, but Tina Fey was on there saying like, we cannot be calling each other sluts and whores, because when we do that, it gives men license to call us that. And I like to live by that. Like, no slut, whore, skank towards another woman. Like, let's not do that. You can call her a bitch, that's fine. And you can find a lot of bad stuff, ladies, to say about each other that does not have to go in to this territory. So I was very against that line. And I don't think we saw good stuff from Mariah's character tonight either. And it makes me very worried about it. But shout out to Queen Aminata, who is amazing. And I want her just offering of honor and doing great stuff on Dynamite. But I hated the skank stuff. And, I've asked Tony a couple of times about female voices backstage. And I don't know if Jennifer Pepperman was involved in this. I hope to God she wasn't. But I don't believe that Tony really listens to female voices in general. And hiring one woman who happens to be the favorite of one of your highest paid wrestlers to work in creative does not fix the problem. And still having stuff like this skank moment on TV shows that a problem still exists, but there's way more to it than that. They showed a video about Saraya. I honestly thought that maybe Tony had taken notice of all the terrible Saraya Ronnie Raddick stuff, which if you want to know about, you can go on my Twitter. I've talked about it a lot. I really need to write about it when I find the time. But it's been something I've been wanting Tony and the company to address, and have tried to get it addressed privately, but it hasn't happened. I just hope, if we have to see her again, I hope that Jamie just squashes her and she's out. But that's all I have to say about Dynamite. I'm very much running out of time here, but I will close on saying that I really did enjoy All Out as a pay-per-view. I had a great time with it. 1 second. It was one of my favorite live shows that I've ever attended. And I tweeted that last night before Dynamite, because I do feel like I was complaining a lot on Twitter about other things, Saraya and Ronnie Raddick, and also the press scrum. And it didn't, I had not expressed how much I liked that pay-per-view, and I felt bad about that. But that's where, like I've said this, if I was a fan, I would have had a great night. I really would have. But then I just had such a sour taste in my mouth after the scrum, which they did, 15 minutes of Tony. But it's hard to describe if you weren't in that room, but there was an atmosphere created that made me think that something had gone down that put me off, doing anything say asking anything that wasn't to do with the TV deal that he said he wanted questions on, but he couldn't announce. It was all so weird. But I really, really enjoyed All Out. And I think that AEW is in a pretty good place right now. They're not in a good place with ticket sales or viewership, but I like the stories that I'm seeing on TV. I'm preferring Dynamite to Raw right now, so that's really good too. And there's a lot of people across the card in AEW that I really, really like that are getting spotlighted. So do I have anything else that I want to say on that weekend? No, it was really good. It was really good to go to Chicago. I love the contrast between All In and All Out, and I do want to make a video about that if I have time, and hopefully I'll get time to do that before the end of the week, and hopefully it won't be too late. But great. I'll answer one question. Are you going to Wrestle Dream? Says Redmond Survivor. I am very much trying to go to Wrestle Dream. Very much trying. So any help is greatly appreciated. Thank you to everyone that tuned in. I'm really excited to see that so many of you were here to watch my return to being Miss Dynamite, reviewing Dynamite, because I missed talking about this show, because whether it's a good show or a bad show, AEW Dynamite always gives you something to talk about, and that's why it's great, and that's why I started doing AEW Dynamite reviews, and I don't do Raw or SmackDown reviews, because I can only fit in one review of a wrestling show a week, and it's got to be Dynamite because I enjoy talking about it the most. So what I would like to do, hopefully starting next week, is if any of you want to come on and ask me a question or say your thoughts on the show, I will open that up to channel members. I'll give channel members the StreamYard link if that's what you want to do. There will, of course, be rules and regulations about, how long that you can be on there, because we have to get through the show. But I would really love to interact with a lot of you more. Earlier in the year, I tried out Twitter Spaces for a while, and what I enjoyed about that was getting to speak to other people and have other people speak back to me rather than read comments. So I'm hopefully want to make a go with that, and it's only possible with you guys' support. But thank you so much for being here and watching the return, and it's been lovely to see all of your comments as well. I promised you guys a Willow Nightingale interview, and I got failed by many hotel Wi-Fi's when I tried to put it up. So I'm going to get that up for you hopefully tomorrow. And hopefully I'll make a video about All In and All Out, because I really want to do that. There should be another interview coming up on my channel next week, and I'll be back here next Thursday to review Dynamite again. But until then, go find me over on Substack, Stephanie Chase, over on Twitter, Stephanie M. Chase, Instagram, Stephanie M. Chase. And if you're watching this video and you're not subscribed, you are making my lovely cat, Luma, who you can't see anymore, but she's over on the bed. You're making her sad if you're not subscribed. She gets really sad when people don't thumbs up my videos. She gets really sad when people don't like my videos. So if you saw Luma in the background, do it for her. Give me a subscribe, give me a thumbs up, and give me a nice comment, and I will see you